Quick, everyone, look at the adult playing Call of Duty.
I have a kind of a set schedule, right?
Mhm.
So every morning I write for a couple hours at least. And I go upstairs, take a shower. And then between the shower and this podcast, I have 10, 12 minutes. And I fill that time with Call of Duty. Today, poorly, but
I guess that's better than drugs and alcohol.
that's probably roughly equivalent.
It's some sort of
Yeah. It's another kind of
dopium.
addiction.
What is it? Dopamine drop when you?
At least I'm not gambling my money away.
Yeah.
Just my health and my well-being. Anyway,
Some people. Yeah. Some people do drugs. You play Call of Duty. Other people blow all their money on loot boxes,
that's right. Yeah. I don't
loot
do any of
crates.
that.
But
Right. And for some reason,
here we
I'm
are. Once
shifting
again,
here.
Brad is procrastinating. My plan is to eat lunch downstairs and actually set up the studio for tomorrow.
Nice.
I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's
Yep. It's another beautiful winter day in Ireland here in Pennsylvania, so I understand your lack of desire to do anything.
it's strange. Nobody has an accent over there, Paul.
Yeah.
I was actually
Yep.
thinking that today when I was driving my kid home, or driving back from dropping my kid off at school. It's like I didn't choose to live in London. I don't know what this is.
Right. Well, I came from Boston, so if you want an example of the worst possible accent on earth, they're at least in the running.
Yeah. Speaking of Boston, by the way,
Mhm.
this probably isn't going to happen. But
Okay.
as I tweeted out over the past couple days, one much of my disgust that Microsoft was holding their partner conference in Las Vegas, and followed by audible groans and visual tweeting. Um,
Yep.
an email showed up several days later and said, "Hey, Brad, actually, you can't go to that." And it's not because they hate me, which I assume they do anyways, but it's
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
because Microsoft is having tech ready at the same venue, I think at roughly the same time, and that has always been closed to the press. And so it really makes that decision easy. And if you're wondering how this ties into Boston, Paul,
I was.
yeah,
Are you telling me it's going to be in Boston next year?
no, not quite that.
Oh, okay.
My wife has a conference, and this happens every year when I go to the conference. They always overlap by like a day or two.
Mhm.
And her conference is actually in Boston, and she's like, "You should come to Boston with me."
No, you should do that, and you should go visit Chris at Summer Shack and tell him I said hi.
I was like,
I can guarantee you free drinks.
I was like, if we go to Boston, I guarantee that Paul could probably tell us a few good places, but I bet he'd probably tell us the bad places just to make us.
No. No, Boston's a beautiful city, and that'll be good. So this is going to be in May? Oh, no, in
No,
July.
July.
Oh, that's going to be ideal. You should go out in a boat.
Yeah, so we will see. The only reason why it may not happen because Paul, unlike when we go to conferences where we're covering from press, she's actually attending the conference and is going to be in the conference from 8 to 5, and then have work meetings in the evening. So it's
What's the date of this, roughly speaking?
July 19th, something
Oh.
right around that date.
That is almost exactly the day we're heading to Sweden for our home swap. So I was going to offer you, I don't know how enticing this would be, but I could go to Boston. I was going to say I could go to Boston while you're there. We could just go do stupid shit videos on our own.
Oh, yeah.
But actually, I will be flying to Sweden, I think on the 20th.
Yeah, it might be. It might be days before that. I know that
but
July
I
9th.
I
Yeah,
can't go somewhere right before the home swap. My wife would kill me. We have to
yeah. I mean,
clean
it's
the
not like,
house and
it's not like you're
you know.
planning to move right before a home swap. Or anything.
Yeah. No, that was last July. Yep.
Yeah, but speaking of your wife might kill you, she might also kill you too if you recommended that she use To Do last year on April 19th, because Paula, as we've officially reached the 1 year mark of Microsoft saying, "Hey, Wunderlist is dead,
You know
and
what I
To
love
Do
about
is the
this?
future." But here we are.
I observed to you privately that you are I think the phrase was a bitter man. But it's actually, I thought about it afterwards. It's worse than I thought because you put that date in your calendar, didn't you? You didn't
did.
just come across this.
Last year.
You literally, you were like, a year from now, I'm going to hold them to the flame for this.
And that's exactly what I did. This is a bad. I don't know if it's a bad habit, but every time like a big announcement like this happens, I will go to my calendar and just blow it out to what exactly 1 year later or whatever they announce, and then see like, hey, what did they do it? And it popped up this morning, and I went, oh yeah, that was today.
It's like the blogger version of that gnat that you can never quite hit, and it just keeps buzzing in your ear. Like.
Called accountability, Paul Thurrott. Accountability.
Yeah, that's right. That's probably a more technical term for it.
That's a professional term.
Yeah.
To stalking.
Yes, that's good.
Speaking of other things that are good, actually, by the way, it's good if you're an Amazon shareholder, I think. But
right.
Jeff Bezos, when he's not hitting the gym or launching rockets, apparently, he said that there are now 100 million Amazon Prime subscribers, which is that's a lot.
Yeah, and it's the first time they've ever given any number to that subscriber base, so it's kind of interesting on that basis alone. There was some ancillary data around music and video and some of the services that are tied into Prime, but a lot of that has already been kind of well known. Tens of millions. I think it was 26 million was the exact figure of Prime Video users. Tens of millions of Music Unlimited subscribers. This is only somewhat tied to Prime in the sense that you still have to pay extra for it, but it's basically their version of Spotify. I don't remember the exact figure on the Alexa skills, but was it 30,000 or more? I mean, some huge number of Alexa skills. It's just basically, one of those shows of health kind of thing. I mean, there were other parts to the shareholder letter, which is where this information was provided, that were very vague. Like I felt like the AWS stuff was really vague, probably purposefully. But it's interesting. I think they're trying to show core strength in an area where their competitors can't do anything about it, right? So if you think about it, Prime as a service, $100 a year, can tie in both digital and physical perks, right? 2-day shipping. Free, I think, 2-hour shipping in certain cities and locations.
Yep.
And then, of course, all the digital stuff, the music, the photos, the video, everything else. And, if you're Apple or Netflix or, whoever, Google, I mean, you can do things. I mean, there's things you can tie in and stuff. We've seen different services tie together. I think Hulu did a deal with HBO recently. So if you want to watch, what's the HBO series that just came back? I don't know. I'm old anyway. It doesn't matter. But you can get it for only $5 on Hulu. They can do stuff like that. But there's really no one or no service that can duplicate what Amazon can do. And I think that was what this was about. Like, hey, see, it's working. Unlike our video.
Which I totally just broke. How am I going to fix this on a live thing? This should be easier. There. I got to look at my big head for a minute. I forgot that we were doing a podcast for a minute. And interesting. So, Paul, what caught me off guard, what I was thinking in my head is, Paul, you once described, I believe it was New England, and if there was anybody of this generation, this is not intended to be insensitive, but just qualifying them. You said New England is the Vietnam for Krispy Kreme and Dunkin' Donuts.
Right. Yeah, I said New England. No, well, for Krispy Kreme. New England is where Dunkin' Donuts got started. So there are Starbucks everywhere for sure, but Dunkin' Donuts is, reigns supreme in New England. So when Krispy Kreme had come to New England, 10 years ago, I said to my friend Jeff, because they actually had a store in Dedham briefly, and that was as far as they got. Yeah. And I said, mark my words, New England will be Krispy Kreme's Vietnam. And sure enough, they're gone. Yeah,
so I'm going to use that same analogy, but it's not quite that far down the pipeline. I would say that Cincinnati is Amazon and Kroger's Vietnam.
Interesting.
Because Kroger's, largest grocery store retailer in the country, is based in Cincinnati. And now Amazon put their their America shipping hub in Cincinnati. It was one of the first cities to offer Whole Foods 2-hour delivery. We get Amazon Prime up to 1-hour delivery if you're willing to pay $6. And so they're going head to head with Kroger's for the grocery market here, and it's interesting.
And you think it will not succeed, is what you're saying?
Oh, I'm not saying it won't succeed. I'm a happy consumer living this real of having all these options for food delivery now. And,
did you notice the deal? I think it was yesterday between Best Buy and Amazon that I kind of equated to, in my head, to when Microsoft invested in Apple right back in 1998 or whatever year that was. Because, Amazon has systematically destroyed every kind of retailer imaginable, from booksellers to retail stores and electronic stores. They're all gone, right?
Sure.
Except for Best Buy, right? So Best Buy is, and I always sort of felt like Best Buy would have some role, because it's a place you can go and see big things. If you're going to buy like a dishwasher or a refrigerator or something like that, or even a TV, I think you want to kind of see it first. And it must be disheartening for Best Buy that people do that and then use their phone from the store to order it from Amazon and then go home. But, there's, that's a thing. And so Amazon and Best Buy signed a deal where I think Best Buy is going to distribute Fire TV based TVs, right? Like HD or 4K TVs, whatever they are. And I don't remember what Amazon is doing in return, but it's kind of an interesting, like a handout of sorts to the last man standing in many ways of their their traditional retail competitors. I know there are others, obviously, but it behooves Amazon to keep this company in business, just like at the time, and what a great decision that was. It behooved Microsoft to keep Apple in business.
So, Paul, are you saying that Best Buy is about to launch an iPhone?
No, I don't. No, I think like Sears and Toys R Us before it, Best Buy's path is clear. It is moving in a slightly different direction. But I guess I would have said that of Apple in 1998 as well. I mean, back then, all they had was the Mac, and it wasn't doing very well. So, eventually, of course, just a couple of years later, they had the iPod. That was a huge success, and that kind of set them on that new direction. But is there such a thing for Best Buy? I don't know. No, probably not.
Yep. We will see. I did see that announcement. I was like, man, this is
weird. It's a little weird.
Yeah, it is, because they're like, here, show off the TVs that we want people to come to Amazon.com to buy.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, at this point, it almost seems like Amazon should just buy Sears. Just buy it. You could be had for nothing, right? Yeah. I mean, it's your basic fixer-upper. And then just kind of prop up, use those as the stores. And they must have huge storage facilities. I mean, you could use them as mini storage areas too, or, or that, I don't know if you ever had or seen this type of retailer, but I think it was called like a warehouse retailer, where the front of the store was basically a tiny front end, and you could actually flip to a book, and then the stuff would come out from the back. So most of the building was just a warehouse that you never got to go into, but you would actually order it and then get it kind of right there.
Yeah.
They could just store locals. Yeah. I mean, you could have a local pickup, like apartment buildings have Amazon pickup places. I don't know. It seems like they must be looking at it. I mean, Sears must be worth next to nothing right now.
Yeah. Yep. And then one last thing here is, Paul, what does Microsoft know about us?
Yeah. I've been reading all these stories, and of course I did it myself for Facebook, not for Google. I'm a little nervous about the Google one, but you can go to these services and download your data, right, and see what they know about you. What you don't see is what they do with that data, because it's the crunching of the data and the aligning of the things you're doing and where you're doing them that gives them all their intelligence. But everyone, it was, I don't know, New York Times maybe, or some publication read an article like, I downloaded my Facebook data. Yikes. Like it was some big scary thing. And of course I did it, and I was like, yeah, like whatever. It's like, it's the photos I posted. It's, the advertising, I think, was the only semi-interesting bit. And it was like, whatever, like there was nothing like scary or weird in there. But then I thought, what about Microsoft? Right. So Microsoft has a privacy dashboard up at account.microsoft.com. And it's worth looking at. It's interesting. If you're a heavy user of Microsoft services, which I think some or listeners or viewers of this podcast would be, but
sure,
I think we can also agree out in the wider world, very few people are really. You might be interested in what information Cortana has about you, or the information you've provided to Cortana, actually, because, by the way, that's how it works. You construct a notebook that she is the way that she learns about you. But I would say the only very really precise thing they had on me was my location, which makes sense because I sign into Microsoft services on phones and on my computer, which is at my home, and they have that exact address and location on the map. And then as I move around in the world, they can see where I'm hitting their services out in the world. But that's not scary or weird. I allow that. I explicitly allow, like when you use the weather app in Windows 10, one of the choices is you can use your precise location. And I just choose that. I don't care. I don't care if Microsoft knows where I live. I feel like they're maybe among the more trustworthy of those companies for sure. But as far as like activities, like I don't use Bing for search. I don't use Edge for browsing the web. And so a lot of the web-based stuff is just off the charts useless. Like it's very thin because I only hit those things occasionally by mistake. If I bring up Edge, the MSN page loads or something. So I think a lot of the activity that would be interesting isn't on Microsoft because I, like most people, don't use that stuff. Yeah. And health data is another example of that. A couple of years ago, 3 years ago, certainly, I was using a Microsoft Band. I was using the Microsoft Health Service. I was syncing it to Health Vault. There was a lot of data there. You look at it now and it's a wasteland. There's nothing there. I don't even know how to go back in time that far to see it. I tried to. It was just a bunch of blank pages of nothing. They have a thing about apps and services. That's a little interesting. But again, since you're using those apps and services, there are no surprises there. You can see the apps used in Windows 10, including third-party apps like Chrome that have nothing to do with the store. But you don't see any data about it, right? Chrome isn't at the top where it should be, like if it was listed by most used or something. It doesn't tell you the times and dates that you use the apps or services. It tells you the date, basically, actually the day. It's not particularly compelling. I mean, I guess in the sense that we're in this kind of privacy scary era, it probably makes sense for people to look at all of the services that they use. And I will go look at Google. I'm kind of putting that one off, but that might be that might be a yikes moment. But
yeah,
it might be big too. It's probably going to be a huge thing to download if that's how that works. But the Microsoft one, first of all, like I said, they're trustworthy. Most people aren't using their stuff that much anyway. And if you are, there shouldn't be any surprises, right? So I don't know. I didn't see anything personally that offended me or shocked me or surprised me. And that said, I'm sure you're going to see an article soon. I looked at what Microsoft stores, and you're not going to believe.
Yeah, it's going to be from somebody who said, I punched in my social security into Bing 78 times. You'll never guess what I found in my history.
Yep. So I don't know. So I didn't think it was that dramatic at all.
You're dramatic. That's all.
That's what my daughter tells me.
Oh, that's bold.
Well, so it's funny you say that because she literally over the weekend said, you are by far the most dramatic person in this family. And I said, I am not. And she said, see how you're reacting? I mean, it was like it was a trap.
That's what they do. That's what they do.
They're the best. I would say that.
It's just like my kid said, this is a much smaller scale. My kid said that I could have a cookie. Why she's giving me permission to have a cookie in my own house, whatever, aside from the point. But the bigger issue was this was the last cookie. And so I ate it and I threw away the box. I even told her it was the last cookie. And what happens when my wife gets home? She runs to her and says, Dad ate the last cookie. I'm like,
that's awesome.
This is a trap.
That is literally exactly the same thing I just described at a different age.
Yep.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It was great.
Right under the bus.
Nothing. You got anything else for today, Paul?
Not really. But by the time this thing is up, I should have posted a very short thing about a new app called Grasshopper, which alleges that it can teach you how to program in JavaScript on your phone. And I thought that looked kind of cool. So I installed it and started playing with it. And actually, if you're looking for kind of a bite-sized way to get into this type of thing, it looks pretty solid. It's not going to teach you programming, to be clear. I mean, if you want to write code, you got to write code. I mean, there's no way around it. You have to write and write. And it's like golf. You can't play around. Like you have to do this thing and stick with it and keep practicing, and there's no way around it. But if you're busy and you just want, you kind of been thinking about it, and maybe you commute to work every day, you have a couple of minutes to kill. It looks like kind of a neat way to get started. I would, for the real beginner.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
There you go. And,
what about you?
I appreciate you asking, Paul. I have nothing. I'm going to go make lunch. Then I'm going to go downstairs into the basement and try to get that stuff all set up. Because as we all know, the best time to test something is during a live podcast, which we will do tomorrow.
We have never had a problem doing something with live code ever. So just go for it.
I mean, the database got deleted this week. What could be worse than screwing that up? So
yes. Right. Or as some readers put it, hacked by the Chinese.
Anyways, folks, well, that wraps it up for today. And tomorrow's show is live, so you can check that out at thrat.com/live. And we will be putting the bits up around 1 p.m. Eastern time. And you can find out more there. Otherwise, have yourselves a wonderful Thursday.